Hi there, Karen Flaherty from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to be talking about the gate 31, which is the gate of influence and part of the channel of the alpha. Okay, so today we're talking about the sun in gate 31. It started on late in the day on July 24th. It goes until July 30th in the evening. And at the same time, the Earth is in gate 41, which is the gate of creativity and fantasy. So we've got the gate 31 up here coming off the bottom of the throat, and we've got the gate 41 coming off the right side of the root center down here. This is creativity and fantasy, and this is the gate of influence. And you can imagine the gate of influence coming off the throat means that you will be an influential speaker, an influential leader, an influential alpha personality, male or female. This is not gender-based. So we start the week again with the 4 motors that were defined last week, these 4 centers that are defined, and they create the channels of community and the channels of mutation. And so we've got these 2 channels defined again, and this goes until Saturday and then we'll be back to just the sacral and the root defined. And the 4037 will go away because the 40 Mars moves into the gate 64. So if you're, planning on doing anything or you have some big activities coming up until Saturday, go for it because you'll have the energy to do it. And then after that, then we'll be back to just the sacral and the root center defined again. So again, the sun is in gate 31. It's the gate of influence. Or leading also in the original I Ching. This influence is described as the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. And what that means is that we're talking with people, we're being with people, we're using language, right, to express ourselves, to communicate, to lead people. And through the interactions that occur, we can create this transference of information, and that leads to influence. In the incarnation crosses this week, we got the cross of the unexpected, the cross of influence, and the cross of the alpha. And in quantum human design, we call this the leader. And in gate 41, we're calling fantasy. It's decrease or contraction in the original I Ching. It's literally the gate that comes off the root center that is the very beginning of the human design year. We're about halfway through the year now, right? So this is the other side of the mandala shows in the whole I Ching mandala would be at the other side. So 31 happens in July, 41 happens in January. And this decrease or contraction in the original I Ching is about the limitation of resources, which maximizes development of potential. So again, it's one of these gates of limitation that once we see the limitation, this one happens to be of resources, that we can then maximize the development, the potential, and really create what we need to create from there. And so that's why it is all about creation. It's about fantasy. It's about visioning. It's about coming up with new ways of doing things. It's a very creative kind of energy. In the Gene Keys, fantasy is the shadow, anticipation is the gift, and emanation is the CD here. And in quantum human design, we call this imagination. So with the Gene Key 31, I've used this graphic. It says courage is a key quality of leadership. And so Richard goes into quite a bit of detail about that, but you have to have courage to be a leader, right, of some sort. Here, the shadow, if we look over here, the shadow is arrogance. On the repressive side, it's deferring or, kind of like a false humility. In the reactive side, which is the more anger-filled side, it's scornful or people really looking down upon others. It's an arrogance that's kind of rooted in that anger, and therefore it's not very nice to be around. It's people looking down on others, basically. The gift is leadership, and the CD is humility. And so he says that in the modern world we see around us, nothing more than mental constructs created out of billions and billions of words. So Richard's take on this, Richard Rudd's take on this in the Gene Keys is that influence is all about language, and language is he kind of turns it on its head because we think we can control the language. He's saying instead, language is controlling us. That the words we use, the narrative we create, the stories we tell ourselves are so influential, so significant that it's actually the language controlling us. And if we look at it, well, there's really quite a bit of language around us that does affect us on a day-to-day basis. I mean, look at the news and the media, books, plays, any kind of creation around words, and anything we hear, right? Whether it's on the radio, TV, films, recordings, any of that, any of those are words. And we react to the words and we're affected by the words. He also says we can see how the specific release of a particular book or film at a particular time can have a vast impact on the whole planetary consciousness. And the funny thing is that I was thinking before I started putting this together, look at how interesting it is that because the two movies I'm thinking of came out on Friday, right? Which was right in the middle of the Gate 56, which is the storyteller or the seeker, right? Or the curiosity, or the person seeking, the curious person seeking things out. And those two big movies came out over the weekend, Barbie and Oppenheimer, both made much more money than they expected to. Both were really well attended, and there was quite a media frenzy around those two. And then beyond that, there was a song by Jason Aldean that created a stir as well. And so those three things, one song and two movies, created quite a buzz over the weekend. And then we move into influence, this gate of influence, where people will be influenced in the entire consciousness, basically, of the world, will be influenced by the movies and recordings that have come out recently. And so it's just an interesting way to look at it. And it's, always kind of funny, ironic, right? When it comes, the transits actually do seem to have an effect on things. I always think they do, but it's always nice when you can point to something. But that did have that coming out at that particular time, it did have a big impact on the whole planetary consciousness. And it's, it won't just be the United States. It's probably going to be shown in many different countries. He also says to be truly humble, you won't mind others thinking you are arrogant. And so this is talking to the CD, which is humility, which is it's one of those ones, like, I won't even talk about it because he gets so esoteric about it that it's like humility is when we're completely not regarding our ego or the way we talk, or it's like being on such a high level, high frequency level, not in terms of arrogance level, but in terms of frequency level, that it's really hard to even comprehend. But the gift of leadership is easier to comprehend because it's a gift of where the leadership is not based on either anger or fear. It's moving above the shadow. It's moving out of the arrogance and moving into leadership that is truly about bringing everybody together, having the language to do that, and making sure that people understand the language as much as possible, so that they're not feeling put upon or looked down upon or somehow repressed or suppressed in their job or their career or their family situation. leadership can be in, of course, a lot of different situations. It doesn't have to just be in a job or a career. It can be, of course, in the family, right? It could be the matriarch or the patriarch of the family. It can be a cousin or aunt or an uncle, for that matter. It doesn't have to be the top person. Anybody can take on that leadership position. And the 31 is actually part of a channel that's called the channel of the alpha. So it's the influence from the throat, and then from the G center, the gate 7, which is all about small d democratic leadership, where you're invited in to be the leader. And these people are just like, who, me? And yet they become wonderful leaders because they have this gift of the channel of the alpha. So we've got a number of personalities born this week. It's Mick Jagger's birthday. These are the crest of the unexpected, influence, and the alpha. I'm sure it's not too surprising that a lot of these people took on leadership roles, had the influence to be able to speak it or sing it or write it, and then take it from there. Henry Ford, for example, famously gotten in trouble for a lot of the things he said and the things he thought, but he ran a company that was the first company to have an industrial factory line, basically an automated factory line that allowed automobiles to be produced at a very much increased rate of production. That was a big change for the Industrial Revolution. That Mick Jagger is a leader in his own infamous band, the Rolling Stones. George Bernard Shaw, wonderful author. Janet Reno, Attorney General. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a leader in actually a number of industries. He happens to be a manifester, but look at first in fitness industry, then in movies, and then as a governor of California. So he's worn many hats and been the leader in a number of those. And Bella Abzug, who was a politician in New York and who was very important in the both civil rights movement and women's rights movement. So those are the people this week who have birthdays, and there were actually quite a few more that I didn't even put on here. So have a great week. See where your influence can be used, can be voiced, can be even written. And if your role requires writing, this week is a good week to use the language of influence to make your point. And so if there's something that you've been wanting to say, something that you've been wanting to get across to other people, whether it's family or friends or your job, any kind of or political stance, there will be influence. People will be speaking with influence this week. So watch for it. It'll be interesting to see. Hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next time. Be well.